Did you know that in 1962, Notone's single soap product became so popular that it eventually led them to changing their brand name to match it? Welcome to the Cosmetic Chronicles, the podcast where history meets beauty and tells the amazing stories behind some of the world's most notorious brands. I'm your host, Sarah Carvalho, and I'm a beauty journalist who has been obsessed with makeup since my first swipe of mascara. In this episode, we're covering Neutrogena, the brand that started with one simple skincare product and grew into becoming one of the most popular skin health and beauty brands, and not only with consumers, but with dermatologists as well. Now, starting with a little Sarah experience with the brand, I was personally a big Neutrogena girly, especially since I started my skincare routine young. I think I was 12 or something when I started a skincare routine, mainly because I just wanted to be like my older sister who was 5 years older, and she had the Noxzema and Clean and Clear, so I wanted to be like her. So I just started flipping through my pages of Cosmo Girl to find the right skincare for my needs, which has always been the same, drier skin. And I had light acne when I was young, nothing too wild, but obviously anything at that age can feel really intense. So I felt like Neutrogena was marketed directly to me. And you just could not get away from the water splashing in the sink commercials where everyone's just washing their face with complete chaotic water everywhere. And the one thing I remember about Neutrogena, and they still have this, is just everyone looked so fresh. It was very like fresh and clean and just natural. And I don't know, there's something about it that just was so, it just made you want to run out and buy it. I guess just marketing. And for me, I also was and still am a huge Mandy Moore fan, and she will always be my Neutrogena queen. She was very big in like the late 90s, early 2000s as the Neutrogena girl, and just because she has that like fresh face. And I have met her in person very briefly, and she does have like the most amazing skin. I don't know if she uses Neutrogena, but I just remember being like, I'm sold. I also credit Neutrogena with helping me incorporate sunscreen into my daily routine. They had a facial moisturizer. I think it was just called the oil-free moisturizer, and it included SPF 15 in it. And just like present day Sarah note, that's way too low to be the only sunscreen you wear. So just FYI, that's a great addition, but you need like real SPF. But for a 16-year-old in school all day, it was definitely better than nothing. And I really think that helped just with preventative aging and just preventative care, was that this moisturizer already had SPF in it. And then I remember when the tinted came out, it was like, I don't even need makeup. Like it was just such a big deal for me. So their moisturizer was a big deal, and actually we'll find out later in the episode it was a big deal in just the skincare space as well. And also my two other teenage Sarah must-haves were the Deep Clean Cream Cleanser, which is such a cruel name to have to say, but that was a huge cleanser for me. I think that was my number one cleanser for many, many, many years. And then also their skin clearing makeup foundation. So if you listen to the CoverGirl episode, we also talked about how they came out with their own skin clearing makeup foundation prior to Neutrogena, but it was the same kind of idea where it was supposed to not only help cover any blemishes or acne, but also actually help clear the skin at the same time. So those two were very big for me. And just, I was definitely, like I said, a Neutrogena girly, but we'll talk more about products and our favorite spokespeople later on in the episode. But for now, let's go back to the beginning. Neutrogena was originally named Notone, and it was formed in 1930 by Emanuel Stolaroff, or Manny, as he's referred to on the website, and how I will refer to him in the rest of the episode. Notone was headquartered in Los Angeles, and for its first 10 years of business, the focus was supplying specialty cosmetics to beauty salons related to the Hollywood film industry. So Manny was manufacturing cosmetics and lipsticks and lip brushes for the big name brands of that era, and just really focusing on film, basically. And then during the 1940s, Notone expanded its manufacturing and distribution of cosmetics to the larger retail market. But the big moment for Notone came 14 years after the brand was born. So in 1954, a business trip to Europe inspired Manny to follow a new product that would chart the future course of the brand. He came across a Belgian cosmetic chemist named Dr. Edmund Fromont, who had developed this new soap. and it rinsed quickly and easily, leaving no soap residue. And in fact, it was shown that 11 minutes after washing with Froment's soap, a person's skin pH would return to normal. And so this was incredibly unique at the time. And also as unique was the color. It was an amber colored facial cleansing bar, and he called it Neutrogena. And believing that the soap would be really well received across the pond, Manny bought the rights to import and distribute it in America. And Manny specifically wanted to bring it into drugstores since it was his mission to make science-backed skincare accessible for all. So what exactly was so special about this soap? Well, a lot of the explanation actually begins with the name itself, Neutrogena. So when Manny discovered this clear, mild soap, or I should say when he discovered Froment's clear, mild soap, it stood out because it left skin's natural pH neutral after washing. This was unlike many harsher soaps at the time that were more alkaline, and they could disrupt the skin barrier and cause dryness or irritation. So the idea was the soap was neutral to the skin, hence neutral, plus gena, suggesting generation, producing, or giving rise to. So neutro and gena together becomes generating neutrality on the skin. So that was kind of the whole point about this soap, is that it was creating a kind of neutral skin base after washing, which was unimaginable at the time because everything kind of left you a little bit drier. So Neutrogena was the name of the soap, generating neutrality, and it was meant to emphasize that the soap didn't disturb skin balance, which was kind of the big marketing at the time. And I did look up, I wanted to know the other important aspects of the soap. So we know that obviously the name, it's supposed to generate neutrality. That's great, but like, how does it do that, right? So one of the main factors of the soap is that it had a glycerin base. And the soap is transparent because it was based on glycerin rather than heavy fats, which a lot of soaps were at the time. And glycerin on its own is a humectant, which means it draws water into the skin, helping it feel softer and more hydrated than just stripped of any hydration. There were also minimal additives in this. So there were no heavy fragrance or dyes, which was a rarity in the 1950s, 1960s, where most soaps contained perfumes or colorants. And so this was especially appealing to people with sensitive skin. Also, the formula left a very low residue. So the bar was known for rinsing away without leaving a film. And many beauty soaps of that time contained those fatty acids or moisturizers that could leave behind a little bit of a film and eventually clog pores. So this was noted for being, you don't feel it on your skin after you wash it off. And lastly, it was known for its mild cleansing action. So all of this kind of works together, right? So instead of being a harsh detergent soap, it was made with gentler surfactants. So it was a balance between its ability to cleanse really well, but be gentle on the skin that actually gave it some credibility. And it was actually made popular in hospitals before it even went mainstream. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But those were kind of the main factors of why this soap in particular was so new and such a breakthrough, is because it did all these things that was kind of opposite of soaps at the time. So the early marketing plans for the soap emphasized the product's transparency, the cool color, and really wanted to focus on drugstores as the sales venue. At a time when soap sold for 10 cents, Manny sold Neutrogena for $1. And women went wild for this beautiful amber bar, and it flew off the shelves. And just a current day note, it is still available over 70 years later for a accessible price of $4. So a big part of this marketing success was because of one man. His name was Lloyd Kotzen, a former archaeologist with a history degree from Princeton. Kotzen married Manny's daughter, Joanne, in 1953, and then went to Harvard for his MBA. He became a personally invested player in the family business in 1957, and he actually retained ownership of about half of Neutrogena's stock until the company's acquisition in the early 90s. So Lloyd came in early, he married Manny's daughter, he was in the family business within a couple of years, and then stuck with it pretty much till the acquisition. And Lloyd's marketing strategies, which we will get into in the next section, made the soap such an important aspect of Natone's business that in 1962, the company name was officially changed to Neutrogena Corporation. So this soap was so popular that they were like, we need to just change our business name to match this soap. And then in 1967, Manny became president of the company. That same year, Neutrogena also saw sales at about $3 million, with a majority of that being just from their soap.
Get this, clear skin from a makeup. Neutrogena skin clearing makeup. Dermatologist developed with a proven blemish fighter to clear your skin. And shine? Gone. For clear, natural-looking skin, Neutrogena skin clearing makeup. Beautiful, beneficial Neutrogena.
According to Business Week, Lloyd's motto has always been, quote, "I'm not that smart and I don't like competition," end quote. But I think we can safely argue against that self-deprecation. Here's why. When Lloyd became newly in charge of the company in 1967, he wanted to rethink how to market Neutrogena. So obviously they were doing well in drugstores, but he really wanted to think about how he could approach things a little bit differently. So he actually came up with a brilliant business model. At a time when only large pharmaceutical companies were working with physicians, Lloyd actually sought out genuine relationships with dermatologists. He believed they would appreciate the quality, the safety, the efficacy of Neutrogena. So while big brands were maybe throwing money at television at this point, TV advertising, radio advertising, spokespeople, Lloyd actually obtained something for Neutrogena that no amount of money could buy. Those three beautiful words: recommended by dermatologist. So this started with free samples being left at the dermatologist offices. As of 1981, about 16 out of 66 salespeople for Neutrogena were assigned the sole responsibility of visiting 5,000 dermatologists each year, developing personal relationships with advocates in the profession. So dermatologists have been a part of Neutrogena pretty much from the beginning. And if you have been to a dermatologist, and if you haven't, go. It's very important. But they still will have Neutrogena samples. So derms have always been right alongside Neutrogena from the 1960s. And then in addition to dermatologists, Lloyd also decided to target luxury hotels. So little 1-ounce bars of Neutrogena were distributed to hotels and resorts where Lloyd figured businessmen's wives would likely see them. I think the businessmen would also use them as well, let's be real. He insisted that even though they were mini bars, they still should have the company name and logo on there, just so that it could consistently promote name recognition along with the soap's unmistakable amber look. And also a big part of their sales success was the accessibility. It was priced midway between soaps like Ivory and Clinique on the higher end, and then positioned between elite skincare products and more mundane toiletries. So you didn't hear Neutrogena alongside the Estee Lauder or the Revlons and things like that, because they were kind of priced below, but they were still safe and they were still considered a little bit nicer than maybe like an Ivory soap. No offense, Ivory. And then during the 1970s, the company began to explore more marketing and research efforts to expand the skincare product line. So they actually decided to start looking at acne cleansing soap. And they promoted it specifically in teen publications, offering a free trial size bar. And the ads for these promotions said, quote, "If you have acne, we need your help," end quote. And then Neutrogena would ask teens to send a quarter to cover handling and to give the company honest answers about the success of the soap. So they were basically doing kind of trial testing, but with actual consumers. And apparently over 57,000 teenagers sent in their quarters, and it was the highest response in the company's history and really started to grow a new market that they maybe hadn't even considered before. So that's where they really became known for also treating acne as well during the 1970s. In 1973, the company actually went public with a market value of $11 million. And then between 1973 and 1980, sales leapt 339% to $29 million. And earnings grew 190% to $2 million. And the company was actually highlighted for remaining debt-free during all this time. And then in 1980, Neutrogena also decided to enter hair care. And acne, like I said, the acne preparations kind of soon followed based on the response from the teens that they got in those promotions. And then in 1983, they launched their infamous oil-free moisturizer. So this is the one I talked about in the beginning. And the reason why this was such a big deal is that this was the first ever moisturizer that was sold with SPF. Can you believe it? 1983, paving the way for skincare that combines hydration and sun protection. And now, you can't get a moisturizer without SPF. So technically, Neutrogena started that whole trend. And then by the early 1990s, consolidation and acquisition of small family-owned businesses like Neutrogena became more of a prominent phenomenon. So larger companies were kind of constantly seeking out these strategic opportunities to acquire these smaller companies. So then in 1994, after a long period of speculation regarding a buyout, Neutrogena was eventually acquired by Johnson & Johnson. Maybe you've heard of it. This is the world's largest health products company. And they actually paid a premium of $924.1 million and $35.25 cash for each Neutrogena share, which was a 63% premium over the market price. Now, again, I'm no stock girl, but that's a lot. That's a lot of money. It's all I know. Along with Johnson & Johnson's product development research resources that they would now get through this acquisition, they would also get their international expertise, which could help Neutrogena boost international sales. That was the one thing that hadn't really taken off at more noticeable levels, was their international rise. Neutrogena still kind of remained a US-only brand. And by being acquired by Johnson & Johnson, they obviously would be able to kind of boost all of that international recognition as well. At the time of the company's sale, Lloyd owned about $9.87 million of the outstanding company shares. The LA Times estimated that he would personally receive $347.9 million before taxes from the transaction. All right, it's time for the rabbit hole of the week. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, first of all, welcome. And second of all, the rabbit hole of the week is something that happens organically every time I go to do research. I always think maybe it'll be about one thing, and then I'll read something and I'll be like, wait, what? And then it will create this whole rabbit hole. So that's what this section is. It's never planned, but it always happens. So this week's rabbit hole is actually about the man of the hour, Lloyd Kotzen, our Neutrogena hero. I originally came across this rabbit hole because there was a very brief paragraph on an investment website about this horrific family tragedy that Lloyd endured in the late 1970s. And I was just kind of baffled that throughout all of the research I had done prior to this random article, I hadn't heard anything about it. So before we get to the bad stuff, let's just briefly give Lloyd a little biography moment, because he was an extremely interesting man, in my opinion. The LA Times actually described him as a, quote, multi-millionaire soap salesman who became an elite LA philanthropist, end quote. Okay, listen to this. He was born in February 1929, and he grew up in New Jersey. He transferred from Rutgers to Princeton in his sophomore year, and at Princeton, Lloyd majored in history. After Princeton, he spent 3 years in the Navy during the Korean War. And it was in Japan that he purchased his first Japanese bamboo basket, which eventually grew into a collection of more than 900 baskets. After the war, he returned to Princeton to actually study architecture, and then went on to earn an MBA from Harvard Business School, and then on to work for his father-in-law's company, Neutrogena. However, even while he was working at Neutrogena, he kept a lifelong passion for archaeology. It originally began when he was working as a field architect at an archaeological site in Lerna, Greece in the summer of 1954. So throughout his career, he continued to collect art and artifacts ranging from Amish quilts to folk art, and he actually participated in a lot of archaeological excavations in both Greece and Italy. He served on the advisory council of Princeton's Department of Art and Archaeology from 1982 to 2003. In 1994, the same year of the acquisition of Neutrogena, Lloyd established the Kotzen Children's Library with over 40,000 items, creating new facilities within Princeton's Firestone Library for the collection, and to endow research on children's books and education. How sweet. He also donated more than 3,000 objects, including textiles, to the Museum of International Folk Art in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And additional museums that received gifts and items from Lloyd were the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco and the Shanghai Museum in China. Additionally, Lloyd was always very generous to the field of archaeology, and it went beyond just Princeton. So, for example, in 2000, UCLA, in recognition of his contributions to the college, renamed its Institute of Archaeology the Kotzen Institute of Archaeology. He also served as a trustee of the Archaeological Institute of America and president of the board of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens. In recognition of this and other initiatives, Lloyd was actually awarded Greece's Order of the Phoenix, bestowed on foreigners who have helped raise Greece's international prestige. So he was an incredible philanthropist. He was an amazing art collector and always seemed to be giving it to museums and wanting to be a part of people learning more about different cultures. He was just big about education and history and art, which is beautiful. Okay, so this is the terrible thing. So, this is kind of what led me down a rabbit hole of just learning more about him. So, 1979, while Lloyd was in New York on a business trip, his wife, his son, and his son's friend were actually murdered in the family's Beverly Hills home by an intruder. An investigation by Beverly Hills police found that the number one suspect was actually the Belgian businessman who had originally sold the Neutrogena rights to Manny Stolaroff. Manny and this Belgian rival were involved in litigation, but the police determined that Lloyd was actually the intended target of the murder. Isn't that awful? This Belgian rival ended up committing suicide shortly before his scheduled interview by detectives, leaving the crime technically unsolved. Now, I couldn't find any record of Lloyd publicly commenting on this. No interviews, no statements, no published remarks, which obviously suggests he chose to process and handle this grief privately, which makes total sense. I did see one quote from a man named Harold Shapiro, one of 3 Princeton presidents whom Lloyd worked with as a trustee, where he said, quote, "His terrible personal tragedy accelerated his enthusiasm for collecting children's books. I think it recalled reading to his kids," end quote. Ugh. So while Lloyd may not have publicly expressed his feelings, it was obvious that his profound love for literature and learning and philanthropy seems to have kind of become a powerful and, beautifully constructive way for him to honor and remember his family. Now, I know that's like heavily devastating. I just wanted to give Lloyd this rabbit hole of the week because I think he deserved to have a moment of just talking about all the great philanthropy he's done and everything he's kind of left behind for people that they can still use today. So thank you, Lloyd. After Johnson & Johnson acquired Neutrogena in 1994, the brand decided to expand beyond just their core dermatologist-trusted cleansers and soaps and decided to branch into a full beauty line. So these included cosmetics like foundations and powders that were marketed as not breaking you out, not clogging your pores, mascaras and eye products, which were promoted as gentle and safe for sensitive eyes, contact lens friendly, and lip products that were marketed as moisturizing, lightweight, and don't forget, dermatologist tested. And the positioning was very intentional of these cosmetics, right? So instead of going more glam like other drugstore brands like Revlon or Maybelline, Neutrogena liked to brand their makeup as cosmetics you could trust like skincare. And they kind of moved into specifically focusing on skin clearing makeup in the early 2000s, where they began blending salicylic acid into foundations and pressed powders and concealers. And this was groundbreaking at the time because most makeup kind of clogged pores at the time, but Neutrogena marketed theirs as actually helping to treat acne while covering it. And like I said, as someone who used their skin clearing foundation, thanks to Mandy Moore selling it to me, I do think it helped, it didn't hurt. Also, some other impressive products and technologies they've released in the last few decades include the Helioplex technology. So this was actually first introduced in November of 2005, and it appeared in its Ultra Sheer SPF 55 sunscreen. And now the Helioplex was a major breakthrough in sun protection. So I am an ingredient nerd, so this was like a mini rabbit hole to me. So I'm going to shout out the website allthescience.org because they helped kind of break down what exactly this means. So before this time, sunscreen products were typically marketed due to the degree of sun protection factor, or SPF, that they offer. And the SPF refers to the amount of protection from the sun's UVB rays only. So UVB rays are the sun's ultraviolet rays that can produce those short-term sunburns you get when you go out in the sun for too long and you're like, oh no, I'm burnt. Those are from the UVB rays. UVA rays produce more milder long-term effects than UVB rays. And so essentially UVA rays are the things that kind of contribute to the aging of skin and sunspots over time. And so sunscreen ingredients that absorb UVA rays tend to disintegrate shortly after they're exposed to the sun. So even if brands were putting something in their product that would be able to help block some of the UVA rays, they couldn't be advertising as offering adequate UVA protection because scientifically they would just break down in the sunlight. And so they wouldn't actually protect you. But basically what Neutrogena did is they discovered that if UVB and UVA protecting ingredients were combined with a specific stabilizing ingredient, that all the chemicals actually maintained their effectiveness. So to put it shortly, before Neutrogena, we didn't have the best sunscreen protection that we could get. Now, this is in the US specifically. I know that in different countries, you all have like much better sunscreen, but this, at least before 2005 in the US, we didn't have anything that could really protect us from UVA. So this is a very big deal, is what I'm trying to say. Another big breakthrough for Neutrogena was in late 2011, and that was when they introduced the Rapid Wrinkle Repair line. Basically, the reason why this was such an important product is because it had a retinol, but the glucose complex that they created helped to boost retinol to help make it quickly diminish the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles. So like people were able to see results within a few weeks. And the hyaluronic acid was there to help replenish and rejuvenate the skin. So basically, it broadened the idea of retinol-infused skincare into the mainstream market, but then also had dermatologist-approved efficacy. And it also was known to work for people even with sensitive skin. So this was a really big deal because people wanted to have something they could use over the counter that dermatologists recommended, but maybe didn't want to have to go and get a prescription strength retinol, and also wanted to be able to see results because we're very impatient, obviously. And then one of their biggest lines, I think, to this day, I'm going to speak broadly on this, but I'm pretty sure this is still very big, is their Hydro Boost line. So this was Neutrogena's first dedicated hyaluronic acid skincare range, and it was introduced in 2011 as well. And it was actually only available in Asia Pacific until 2015. So we didn't get it in the US market until January 2015. And at that point, they introduced gel cream moisturizers, water gels, and eye roll-ons, all infused with hyaluronic acid. But also they had a progressive release system that allowed anything that had this product in it to have 24-hour hydration. And then finally in 2018, they debuted the Neutrogena Skin 360 system, which is an app you can use on your phone that helps analyze your skin at the micro level, measuring hydration, fine lines, pores, and more for more personalized skincare recommendations. And this was a big deal because it was one of the first consumer-facing tools that enabled a personalized skin diagnosis just using your phone. So they were kind of marketing it as a degree of dermatological analysis into like your everyday home use, right? So it was a really big deal because it kind of pushed the envelope for more tech-driven skincare and specifically being personalized to what you need, not just to what's being marketed to you. And they apparently released a new and improved version of this app back in January 2020. Now, if you go over to my Instagram at Glow and Flow by Sarah, I'm actually going to use this app and buy the suggested items. So I've never done it before. So just stay tuned for that reel and we'll see what I end up with. They're going to be like, you need all of it. Buy the whole range. So then in 2023, Johnson & Johnson's consumer health division actually spun off into something called Kenvue Inc., which is an independent, publicly traded consumer health company that is now the parent company of Neutrogena. So Kenvue emphasizes, quote, the extraordinary power of everyday care, end quote. Its brand message focuses on compassionate, science-based solutions that play into daily routines. And then in 2024, Neutrogena established multi-year partnership with renowned dermatologists Dr. Deval Banusali and Dr. Munib Shah to accelerate innovation and foster scientific achievements in skincare. So again, even in 2024, they have not forgotten that they want to work with dermatologists to help keep innovation and advancements going in their products. And this is all keeping to their original mission to make science-based skincare accessible for all. Here's a quote from Neutrogena's website about what's next for them in the future. We will keep fighting to break down barriers until we achieve skin health for all. This mission means providing access to skin health expertise, education, and products designed for everyone's needs. Our dedication to developing safe, healthy skincare has evolved into a passion for making our products safe and healthy for the planet. This commitment to sustainability starts with advancing our standards for ingredients, packaging, sourcing, and social responsibility.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nira, here to interview John Cena, the new face of Neutrogena Ultra Sheer Sunscreen.
What's up? Let's do this.
But as you can see, he flaked.
What? I'm right here.
Anyway, Ultra Sheer gives you high SPF protection, and it has an invisible finish.
Hello?
You can't see it. And cut.
You know you can't do that. Ready to trademark. You can't see me, my time is now. You can't see me, my time is now.
So let's quickly run through the icons, even though we've basically talked about most of these already. So this is a little bit more of a roundup. So their first icon, obviously the soap, still considered a cult classic. And you can buy it in the soap form, but they also have it in the liquid as well. All still amber shades. The Neutrogena Hydro Boost Water Gel, specifically the water gel. This has become a staple moisturizer for so many skin types. Again, known for its progressive release hydration, its gel cream texture, and of course, accessible drugstore pricing. The Neutrogena Rapid Wrinkle Repair, like I said, a mass market and effective retinol-based product that also shows quick results. The Ultra Sheer Dry Touch Sunscreen made with that Helioplex technology, often recommended by dermatologists and still one of their best sellers. Of course, the skin clearing makeup. This was a pioneered treatment makeup that was combining coverage with salicylic acid to help acne-prone skin also have treatment along with coverage. Something I didn't mention before was their oil-free acne wash, which is a salicylic acid cleanser. So this was something that they created out of that promotion with young teens with acne. So it did become a go-to for acne-prone teens and adults. And the Neutrogena Collagen Bank line. This is a little bit more of a recent launch, but it was still very successful. It's an anti-aging line that features a micropeptide technology plus vitamin C for hydration and firming. And I'd say that I see the collagen and the Hydro Boost a lot on like social medias with the youths. So let's not forget about the iconic ambassadors as well. So in the 1990s into the 2000s, it was the my forever queen, Mandy Moore, who was known as the Neutrogena girl, okay, because she promoted teen and young adult skincare lines, and she also symbolized that clear, healthy, everyday skin. Also during this time, Jennifer Love Hewitt was an ambassador. She focused on younger audiences with the cleansers and the moisturizers. In the mid-2000s to about the 2010s or so, Jessica Biel was in it, representing anti-aging products. And then Jennifer Garner, who I think she might still be. I think she still is. Anyway, she was featuring in ads for cleansers. And then in the 2020s, we had Gabrielle Union, who highlighted the anti-aging products because she literally never ages. And Kristen Bell also became a big face for the Hydro Boost line. And then the most recent ambassadors we have currently, Hailey Steinfeld and Tate McRae, are the current Neutrogena girls looking fresh and plumped skin as ever. And then finally, just some fun facts that I thought was interesting about Neutrogena and what they've done and what they're doing. The brand has a Heroes of Skin Health Equity initiative that is aimed at improving skin health equity for those with Black and brown skin. The brand has publicly recognized the work of individuals who are striving to make skincare more equitable and have partnered with individuals to close the, quote, skin health equity gap faced by many in the Black, Indigenous, and people of color community. And the brand also has more than 20 award-winning products. Then my favorite Neutrogena news, just last month, August 2025, Neutrogena announced a partnership with Danessa Myricks. Now, if you don't know who Danessa Myricks is, pause the podcast, go look her up. She's an incredible makeup artist. She's a photographer. She owns her own cosmetics line, which is so well thought out and unique and special. And she's just an overall genius. Can you tell I'm a fan? I met her in person. She's like an actual beam of light. Like I can't even explain how much I love her. And we will have an episode on her cosmetics line one day. Maybe we can get her on to talk about it. Let's manifest it together. Anyway, Neutrogena announced that they're working with Danessa to release 3 executive Get Glam Ready skin prep kits. And they're only going to be available at CVS and CVS.com. And here's a quote that I pulled from Danessa about this collab. She says, quote, "A lot of people don't know that my career started in the drugstore. I built my kit at the CVS in my neighborhood, and I've always filled it with Neutrogena products, so it is authentic to work with them. If you look at any masterclass that I've done from like 2016 to now, I always start with Neutrogena," end quote. So those are some things that Neutrogena is doing. I think that they're going to keep coming out with revolutionary products, specifically, I think, sunscreen. And as we move kind of more into people being very interested in skincare and what's going into their skin, I think that they're going to keep focusing on that. I can't say that I think their makeup is probably doing anything wild for them. I think that people still think of them mainly as a skincare brand, which I don't think is a bad thing. So I kind of foresee them leaning more into the skincare of it all and wanting to hear more about ingredients. People are really interested in the chemistry behind ingredients. And so I think they are going to focus more on innovation and technology. And maybe the cosmetics are still be there, but I don't know if they're going to focus on it quite as much. But I'm excited to see what they come out with. And I'm going to end with another quote from Earth Angel Danessa Myricks about seeing her face on these kits on the CVS shelves, because I just love when people bring light and positivity in this world. And let's just end with her positive note. "I know I'm going to cry the first time I walk into the store," she says. "I can't wait to bring my mom to the store too. There are just so many important moments in my life that connect Neutrogena and CVS together. I just love that there's a real story behind this." So those were the Chronicles of Neutrogena. What do you think of the brand? Do you have a favorite wash from them, a favorite soap? Or maybe you also use the skin clearing makeup? Or tell me who your Neutrogena queen is. Leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts. And also feel free to share some of the brands that you'd like to see covered on this podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on the Cosmetic Chronicles.